So I wanted just to conclude today with some remark to stimulate you to work with your friends, to pull down the stronghold that is the real big one, is the idolatry and tritheism involved in believing in three who are really God. Because people don't know in their innocence in church, they don't know what it is their own system believes. And that's a bit sad because we're supposed to be thinking people. But here's what Trinitarianism believes about Jesus. This is what your friends out there actually believe, that they don't even bother finding out. And the preacher doesn't preach about it, so they don't know. But this is on the books, the official books of their faith, is this proposition. Jesus was man, but not a man. This is orthodoxy. This is what your friends in these other churches actually believe. And may I say, in the Church of God, they're not explaining this either. And so there's a general drift into anonymity and agnosticism in these regards. But I want to repeat that. According to the Orthodox Trinitarian Jesus definition of, arrived at through those tangled creeds and councils up to 451, Jesus was man, but not a man. I'm hoping you understand that. It's almost mind-boggling, but it's right there in the books of your friends' churches. He was man in a generic sense. He was humanity somehow, but not a particular man. Now, why did they say that? Because they could see that if Jesus was a man, uniting that a man to a pre-existing God the Son, how many persons would that make? Two. They condemned that as an error. That was called Nestorianism. Nestorius came up with the idea that Jesus was a man, but he was also God the Son, so that made two persons. They said, no, that won't work. So they said, he's not a man, he is man, and this isn't the end of it. This book explains now steps to Christian understanding, actually steps to Christian misunderstanding. He says Jesus was not a man. Now he explains this. Jesus' ego, according to the official system, Jesus' ego, his personality, I get that. You know, we all know each individual has an ego, a personality. Jesus' ego, personality, was divine, he means deity, pre-existing, clothing itself, and operating in a human body. So all that Mary gave to this Messiah was a human body. There was an ego, personality, pre-existing, who was God the Son, who took on a body. That's as human as he gets. Listen to this phrase. He came into history, not out of it. That's fundamentally false. That is pure Gnosticism. It was the Gnostics who said that Jesus came through Mary like water through a pipe. And the church actually condemned that idea. Very cleverly, the church condemned that blatant Gnosticism, that he came through Mary like water through a pipe. They said, that's nonsense. But with the other finger, they said, we really believe something awfully like that. As this book says, he came not out of history, but into history. He was God. Jesus was God. Well, oh, wait a minute. That's two gods. You're saying the Father's God and Jesus is God. These are the conversations you can have with your friends. That sounds awfully like two gods. He was God. Jesus was God in and working through man, but he was not a man raised to the divine level. Well, I see that he began as sinless and remained sinless and was finally exalted to the Father. Crypto-Gnosticism, it's not the, you see, the cleverest way to lie is to say, oh, we don't believe that. Oh, no. Wait a minute. We believe something very much like it. So what emerged then as Orthodox Christianity, how do we get from A to B? Us little sectarian people who don't like the system, how do we move from the New Testament to where we've gotten to? And don't forget again, I want to repeat that, Isaiah 9:6. Unto us, everybody sings this in the Messiah, unto us a child is begotten, a yenithi, begotten, by God that is. It's a divine passive. Unto us, for us a child has been begotten, it's a prophecy, will be begotten by God. Unto us a son is given. God so loved the world that he gave his son. Those are parallel. That text creates a firestorm of argument. Trinitarians, because they say, oh, the Son wasn't born. If you're asking people to accept Jesus, won't you accept Jesus? You might consider starting with his creed. That would be a nice thing to do. Yeah. Jesus said the most important thing is you understand who God is. Forget the rest of it. Get that one right. So accepting Jesus, all evangelical pleas for conversion ought to begin with Mark 12. Let's define God first. The devil says, no, just give me Christian living. See, don't talk about theology. It's not. It's the basis of who God is. And getting the right God rather than the wrong God is very, very important for you and your children. Jesus is a very bad model for us if he's already God. The whole point is that he's the model man needing to be reconciled to God. In our case, he himself never sinned, but he nevertheless modeled the right way to be in line with God. If he is God, the whole story has gone terribly astray. I said this was like having a handicapped child or a child that's incapacitated in some way take part in a piano competition with fully mature seasoned pianists, and you ask a child who has limitations to compete in that arena. It doesn't make any sense at all. So you guys out there, if you don't believe in the Trinity, you are demented and insane. Then let's add the anathemas at Council of Nicaea. They said, curses, anathema upon anybody who dares to say there was a time when Jesus didn't exist. There's a jinx put on you. That's the stronghold that we're working at. That's the anathemas added to the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. So you're up against it, folks. It's a David and Goliath situation. A man wrote to me and said, grammar, he said, Anthony, grammar don't count. So I took the opportunity of pointing out that his English needed a bit of improvement. So he wrote, oh, sorry, grammar do not count. Isn't that precious? Actually, grammar doesn't count. But there are a lot of people out there, may I say this, who are arguing theology who can't write a sentence in English. It doesn't help. Now, I'm not blaming anybody, but you might want to get a little education so that you can write grammatical English before you tangle with some of these biblical questions. It's only when people begin to read the history that they get history so important. Let me quote you one thing from history. The church fathers, the Cappadocian fathers who engineered the fine points of the Trinity, said, we don't believe in the Jewish era. That was the monotheism of Jesus, by the way. We don't like that cold God on his own. The Jewish era. We're mixing the best of the warmth of paganism with the Jewish, what they call monotheism. They call it monotheism. But they did not accept the Jewish era. Actually, that was Jesus' view of God. Jesus' era. And that's why that Mark 12:29, you'll find, will produce a stultifying silence in conversation with your friends. Ask them now, is that creed of Jesus there, Mark 12:29, agreeing with the Jew, is that a Unitarian or Trinitarian creed? Which is it? Don't let them budge, move away. Insist that they answer. How many Yahwehs are there? Okay, you said the Father's Yahweh, Jesus Yahweh. How many Yahwehs is that? Jesus silenced people with the right question. The problem is we haven't been trained enough, perhaps as a group, to ask the right question.